Hi, my name's Elizabeth Kunath, and this is my presentation of my final paper for English 101. The title of my paper is called Safety Dance, as in the 80s song. And my paper goes through a lineage of how we seek safety through the generations, and in context to Jean Twenge's book, as well as Shakespeare's Winter's Tale and Midsummer Night's Dream. I think about safety in terms of being the strongest motivational force behind our life's decisions, such as our education, our career choice, our choice in friends, where we decide to live, what kind of house or apartment we decide to live in, our geographic location. The way that we seek safety is definitely nonlinear. It changes throughout our life, and it takes on new forms throughout the generations, but it always remains. In my own pursuit of safety, at this point in my life, I'm definitely seeking job security and financial support. Jean Twenge would regard these as being extrinsic rewards or motivators, as opposed to intrinsic rewards or motivators. When I was younger, I was more interested in intrinsic rewards when I decided to study art. Now at 36, I'm studying a new field, going to nursing, and ironically, this field will support my art career more than being an artist. I am a millennial. I'm an older millennial, but I'm still a millennial, which means that I was encouraged to fulfill my dreams and everything I ever wanted to do. And that's totally true. Part of this is because of my age, and part of it is because of my parents. And my mother was an artist. Before she was an artist, she was a nurse. So sort of flipped the script, which is interesting, and that might be a whole other paper. The way that Jean Twenge talks about safety throughout the books is pretty subtle, but it keeps popping up in different ways. With Shakespeare, he uses safety as in context to his settings. In Midsummer Night's Dream, the woods themselves were a safe space for his characters to realize who they really were, to explore their truest selves. And then in Winter's Tale, Bohemia in the summer, in the second half of the play, the characters' decisions were finally realized. So this was another form of a safe place. The safe spaces on college campuses is something that we've been hearing about more and more recently, and this has to do with college students taking refuge from certain ideas or people who might be offensive. And it contrasts Shakespeare's idea of a safe space, where his characters went to explore who they were and maybe even take on offensive behavior. Safe spaces on college campuses sort of invert that, which Twenge discusses in her book as well. She talks about these behavioral shifts throughout the generations having to do a lot with the advent of the smartphone. And it's interesting because the smartphone opens up a whole virtual space that could be really fun, and most people think of that as a place where they get to explore who they are as well. However, I venture to say that this space is so big and overwhelming that it actually makes us feel quite unsafe. According to Abraham Maslow, a super famous psychologist who published a hierarchy of needs, our physiological needs are at the bottom of this. And then it goes on to safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and then finally self-actualization. Our safety needs cannot be met until our physiological needs are met, and so forth and so forth. And so without our physiological needs being met, we can't have our safety needs met either. And I think with the two economic recessions that the current generation has experienced, they're definitely having a sense of lack of safety, and that affects a lot of their life's decisions. They do not have the privilege to explore as much as maybe the millennials did. So I guess what I learned from this paper and from doing the research was that my own pursuit, going into nursing is probably a very good idea in terms of the job prospects. And according to the occupational website through the Labor Bureau, the field is projected to expand at least 15% in the next 10 years. If I go on to become a nurse practitioner, those jobs expand even more, up to 30%. The other things that I learned are that there are new jobs that are going to be opening up for people considered IGeners, and they might not be happening in the next couple of years, but eventually. And some of these jobs kind of sound very sci-fi, like body part engineer, child engineer, digital architect. Kind of makes me feel unsafe to think about it. Even though it's taken me a little while to get to this point in my own career path, I would never give up any of my past experiences. I feel very lucky to have had them. And as author Sheryl Sandberg says in her book Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead, careers are a jungle gym, not a ladder. So I like that anecdote. What else could be done? I think if I had all the resources in the world, it would definitely be interesting to continue Twunge's research and do sort of like a quality of life analysis by isolating statistics that have to do with cost of living, cost of education, starting salary, levels of education, and happiness. I would want to compare how these factors have changed and shifted over the last 100 years and maybe make a projection for the next 50 years based on the trajectories. I'm really curious to know how our sense of safety is being compromised when it comes to lifestyle and welfare. How is our quality of life decreasing or increasing? With all of our modern technology, are our lives actually improving? I don't know. But I think it's hard to stop a moving train. Yeah. So what else, or what does this have to do with our personal sense of safety? That's what I would like to look at if I had all the time and money in the world. And that is my presentation of my ideas from my final paper. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great rest of your summer. Be safe.